I think we can get away with just our the members that are on right now. And if either of them join in, then fine. I've met again with Greg Dembowski for several reasons. One was he had told me on a phone call that some of the streetscape projects have been delayed or are completely changing, mostly due to COVID. The Enclave development up north of the Four Corners, that property's been sold again, and the new developer is changing, I guess, still looking to do either condos or apartments, but is changing completely the layout that was first proposed. So that's taking some time. And as Greg has been the one talking to the developers, I wanted to get an idea of what was happening. And what we talked about, he said that things are starting to move a little quicker again. And he's been having meetings with some of the developers recently. So I said, you know, we need to at least have a draft of the path that we would like to take that, you know, he can show to developers and as well as the state, and then we can also use for possibly for a preliminary study. So he said that he was going to take, you know, one of the maps and add to it a proposed path that we had talked about prior, and said this is the, you know, this is the path that we would like to take, and we can use it with, he can use it with the developers, and this way at least we have an idea of what we're looking to do and get some feedback from the developers who may say, okay, that's fine, or no, there's no way that I'm going to be able to do that given what I want to do with the property. So I feel like we're, you know, we're still basically in a holding pattern based on what Greg is working on with these streetscape projects. But at least if we can try and fit ourselves in somewhere, we'll have a better idea of what we need to do going forward. So I'm still waiting for that map from Greg, but I'm hoping to have it in the next few days. And if I get it, or as soon as I get it, I will forward it on to everybody. Number two. So as a result of the meeting that I had with Paula Burton of Westcog a couple of weeks ago, she said, you should be on the Connecticut Greenway's council meeting calls that are being done via Zoom. So I attended one the morning of September 14th. It ran for about an hour and a half. And I would say there's probably about 25 to 30 people on that call. I've just listed some of the ones that I thought you would either recognize or that are more important to what we're trying to do. But a lot of the people on there are, you know, similar to either town representatives or similar to what we're doing, you know, with volunteers, talking about their trails and what work is being done, what stage they're in. And obviously, many of them are further ahead than we are in terms of the expansion, but because our numbers are so strong, they want to know what we're doing and be involved. And the interesting thing about it is I learned, which I will try to start sharing with you, these are monthly meetings, what other projects are taking hold, where money is coming from, and in particular, what the focus of the state and the Greenways Council is. And what I got out of this last meeting is they've put a large focus on connecting trails. So, bits of trails that aren't done that might connect to existing trails, that's where the focus has been. So the fact that I'm telling them, well, we want to connect the current greenways with New Milford, that fits into their plans. But obviously, as I said before, we're not quite far enough down the road for them to give us a lot of help at this point. So I also spoke with Laura Brown, who works for the trail census at UConn. And she was the one who told me that Charles Tracy is no longer with UConn. The new director is a guy named Ryan Faulkner, who I have scheduled a call with for Friday morning. Just get to know him, tell him a little bit about our project, and see where he can help us. I'm sure that Mary, especially you, have seen the 2019 numbers. But if you go on their website, and I would urge you guys to do this, there's a lot of data on there that is interesting, and the ways that they break it down. And one of the interesting things was all of the greenways that are being counted for the year of 2019, when you look at total usage, it's a little bit misleading because not everybody has the same number of days being counted. So you can't look at it and say, okay, well, this one's much better than this one, because that one may have only had 300 days counted and the other one might have had 350 days counted. However, taking it with a grain of salt, the Still River Greenway had the largest total count in the state last year. And the more fairer way to look at it is by averages per day. And when you look at it that way, we were still number 2. So still very impressive numbers. And what I've spoken to the people at UConn about is they get these numbers quarterly, and they're going to start feeding, me the information when it's available, and we can all then look at it. But as we would all guess, the spring numbers and the summer numbers for all of the trails, they anticipate are going to be way up because of COVID, because so many people were home and wanted to get out of their houses. So I'm anticipating that the numbers for this year will, from at least most of the trails, even though they were closed, the average daily, I think, is going to be higher than last year, which again will be helpful to us when we get to the point of looking for grants. So before I move on, anybody have any questions on that? Okay, well, we'll move on then. So as a follow-up to that meeting, I talked to various people, including the people at WestCog and the people at UConn. And I got a lot of this information out of the meeting, because what I've been looking for is, while we certainly have challenges ahead of us, if you remember the first meeting of our committee, when Tom from New Milford came down and he handed out or sent us a study that had been done for the New Milford group, it was basically a preliminary design study and what potential obstacles they would find. And I've been thinking that even though we may have missed the funding sources for construction or for most of these programs for this year, I would like to start soliciting companies to do a preliminary design study. And so I was looking for how do we actually do that? So these 4 programs are the 4 programs that the state has or has access to. And I'll go through them very quickly. So the FAST program is basically a new program that replaced the program that we used to get the first phase completed. It's a federally funded program that funds are administered by the Connecticut DOT. The funding is 80% federal, 20% would be from the town. It can be used for sums available. We either have a proposal that we've chosen or several that have bid on the project, and knowing that we have to go through a bidding process within the town, this could take a couple of months, and I'd like to start it sooner rather than later, since we really don't know when this deep money might come available. My guess is it's probably not going to be till the summer or fall of next year, but I have to do a little more research on that. But that's the thought of my strategy is, if we can't, if we're not able to move too much forward because we're handicapped by the developers and the streetscape projects, at least if we can say, here's the proposed path we'd like to take, we could get a study done that would at least tell us, what are the problems we might find, what is, an approximate cost of the project. It would give us something to work with. So I'm going to stop there for a moment. Any thoughts on what I've...
Can I just make sure I understand what you said, Jay?
Yeah.
So what I heard you say is that we can't apply for the DEP funding for a preliminary study until probably sometime in 2021. But what you would like to do is maybe talk to firms that might be interested in doing the preliminary study and getting them ready to go, so that when we do apply for an application for that preliminary study, we have it.
You're very close. It's really more to get a cost estimate of the study.
Okay.
So that we would know how much we have to ask for in the grant.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. So you want to talk to firms to see what it would cost to actually do a preliminary study.
Yes, to go through the normal bidding process that the town would undertake.
Okay.
So that we can, first of all, vet the different engineering firms, but also get pricing from them and be able to, presumably choose one that we're comfortable with and where the cost is hopefully the lowest. Mm-hmm. And then we can use that to go to WestCog and say, okay, we want to apply for this money. Here's the proposal. And I think if we can get to that point, right, we have a pretty good chance of getting the grant, because as I said, earlier, first of all, our numbers are so strong. Mm-hmm. And secondly, if we're saying that we're going to connect this with New Milford somehow, it's basically everything they want. So, and I think I think the study would make mention of that. So,
true.
Yeah, that's basically what I'm looking to do.
Mm-hmm. And would we have to and are you hoping that by the time we do a preliminary study, Greg Dembowski's work with all these new developers will be a little bit more ironed out, so that we have an idea of where the Still River Greenway would be going through that whole town scenic area?
Yes, I would hope that within the next 6 to 9 months that Greg has that pretty much ironed out. Mm-hmm. For what we can or can't do.
Right.
When I went back and looked at the study that New Milford gave us, it wasn't just one route. they looked at 2 or 3 different routes, but they had one that was, obviously their priority. And I would anticipate that if they do, when an engineering firm does this study, we may give them the route and they may come back to us and say, well, if you can't get this easement, here's what you're going to have to do. Or to get this easement, it may cost you X amount of money. So I think, a lot of our questions would, and I'll give you a perfect example, talking about Riverview. Well, our preferred route would be to go in behind Riverview along the river. Well, if we're going to do that, that presents certain engineering issues that we may have to build a retaining wall or a fence or something. So they would certainly cover that. But at the same time, they may also say, well, if you don't get an easement from Riverview and you have to stay on Federal Road, this is, what you would need to do. And these are the obstacles you might come across. So, I think that would answer a lot of questions. So that's what I'm hoping that we can get started on.
Hey, Jay, quick question. Now, you mentioned the FAST money, which requires a minimum of $500,000, but covers soft and hard construction.
Right.
Why don't we consider combining the soft and hard costs into one proposal? I mean, it's going to be a lot of what ifs, but you can still come up with something.
You can't apply for the construction costs until you have an actual site plan and a whole, and you've put it out to bid.
But I thought you said you could do the soft costs.
You can do the soft costs, but the soft costs, for this study that I'm talking about is only going to be about $125,000.
What about combining the soft costs and the design into one package?
I don't know if if we have a firm design where we have easements in place, then that's a possibility, but I don't anticipate that being the case within the next 6 to 9 months. I don't know that we're going to have Riverview in place by then. They're going to want to see, well, what is the route you're taking to even get to Riverview? So, and a lot of this will also depend on how the streetscape plans progress. And they're now, in the process of having to revise a lot of those. And I understand where you're going with this, Bo, but I'm not sure that we'd be in a position to do it, to combine anything other than the preliminary study. We'll see. Okay.
So even for the preliminary study, what exactly is going to be the scope of work here? If we have all these what if scenarios, what's that going to do for us if we still don't know which way we can go?
If you look at, well, I'm hoping that we give them our preferred route and they work from that. And if you go back and look at the study they did for New Milford, that's pretty much what they did was, here's route A, and following route A, you're going to, have these challenges. If to avoid these challenges, you might want to consider route B. And they actually gave you a couple of different options. That's what I'm expecting that they would do for us.
But if they can do those couple different options, they can probably develop the actual budgetary numbers for performing the detailed design. That could just be an option adder.
It's possible. I mean, as I say, I haven't spoken to any of the engineering firms about this yet. So
we could definitely, trust me, they can do it. You give them, they can do anything you want as far as you pay, as long as you pay them to do whatever you want. I can speak from personal experience.
Well, okay, I take your word for it, and we'll just see how it develops.
Yeah, we do it all the time. We do that all the time as far as bidding. Have them develop the scope, and then they can develop the actual detailed pricing as an estimate. They get some modifications later, but we do that all the time, so it's definitely doable.
But bear in mind, even if we can do that and qualify for the 500,000, we have to wait for this Transportation Act to be funded. That could be 2 or 3 years down the road
Understood.
before we get any of that money. So, okay, let me move on. My last subject. So I've been thinking about, if we're going to do this design and, I don't know if the town will need to put any money into it. I don't know how much it would be. I also know that at some point we're going to need to start fundraising, and I admit this was unbeknownst to me, because in the 15 years or so or 13 years that rec was active, this never came up. But it seems that in the state of Connecticut, in addition to filing your postcard tax return with the state, you have to file some kind of an annual report with the Connecticut Department of State. I've never heard of this. I had never been contacted about this until about a month or two ago. And when I finally got around to calling them and saying, well, what is this all about? And they just reiterated, oh, you have to file an annual report. And each year it's a $50 fee. Well, I've never filed one of these, so I don't know how far back I have to go, maybe 5-10 years. And obviously that's going to cost money. So in addition to, whatever kind of fundraising we want to do for other projects, I need to get funding to get these annual reports done. And unfortunately, I'm not in a position to put up a couple of $100 more to do this. So my suggestion is that we take the emails that we got from our survey, and maybe the Park and Rec email list, if that's legal, and we pitch them with an email blast to try and raise, to give them knowledge, some more knowledge of what's happening with the expansion, and B, to try and raise some funds that would pay for these fees. So Mary, the first question I have is, would it be legal with the town to take your email list to use for a rec campaign?
That's an excellent question, Jay. I do know that as you know, we've included information on rec in different mailers that we've sent out over the years. I would assume that email would be treated the same, but I could certainly check into that a little bit just to make sure my thinking's clear on that. But if people, have given us permission to contact them about other Park and Rec events, I would assume that this would kind of, since it's a Park and Rec facility, it would certainly be within our rights to do that. But I will triple check my thinking.
Okay, I would appreciate it. And Maureen, we do still have that email list from the surveys.
Yes.
So worst comes to worst, we could just email that list.
Yes.
Okay, so I would target this for maybe sometime in late October or November. Mary, if you could check that for me and let me know, and then we'll talk about how we actually get this done. Okay? Any other thoughts on this?
Kind of in sync with.
I'm sorry.
Go right ahead, Jean.
I was just going to ask you a question, Mary. Where do we stand on or if Jay knows, I don't know, the town hall extension?
So right now, it was put in for additional funding to fully fund the capital project was put into this past budget cycle. It did not move forward. And so if we want to move forward with the project, we're going to have to ask for the additional funding needed to complete it again for fiscal year 2022. So we would be putting in that ask as part of the next budget cycle usually we submit budgets in January of 21. For deliberation in March of 2021 and town vote in May of 2021. So we won't know anything for quite some time already.
Wow.
Okay, so that money is all just being held.
Correct. We have the funding that we've received, but we don't have the additional funds needed to complete the project that the town has to vote on and approve.
All right, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I wish I had better news. Jay, actually, just to kind of piggyback your fundraising idea, I know we had tossed around the idea of doing something with Sustainable CT. They have that dollar for dollar match for the fundraising.
Right.
I wasn't sure if if anybody in the group had done a follow-up with that, or if that's something that we should consider trying to get up and going along with the fundraising efforts.
I think we should look into it. I think we should probably get it started at this point. You know, in prior meetings, I said, you know, it wasn't necessary for us to be fundraising yet, given where the project is, but given this new information, I think we should be starting. And we do have, you know, a need for funds.
And is there somebody on the committee that would like to take the lead on looking into Sustainable CT, and if our project would be a good match for it, or should I be working on that, or would you like to work on that, Jay?
Jean, did you work on that?
No, I didn't.
What was the one that you did some work on?
Oh, no, all you did was ask me to get the contacts. I got the contact and I gave it to you.
Right, but that was sustainability. Was that the program that Mary's referring to?
It may be. I'm not sure what she's referring to. It may be the same one.
All right, well, so Mary, I'll work on that. I'll follow up on that and report back at the next meeting. Okay?
Yeah, no, that's great. In fact, I have it up on my second screen at my desk here, and it looks like Norwalk River Valley Trail has something up there doing some fundraising through this site as well. So it looks like, you know, maybe our project might be really very much in line with others that are on there.
Great. Okay. Yeah, I'll look into it then. Any other thoughts, comments?
Hey, Jay, if you want, I can put together a scope of work for the design work or the preliminary design work and develop that.
That would be great, Bo.
Go as an RFP, I guess. We have to go through the town. We have to deal with someone in the town, Mary, for doing RFP, request for proposal.
I would just draft it, Bo, and then yes, it does have to go through the town.
Okay. If Mary, is there somebody who just check to make sure there's any specific requirements they have beyond just a standard scope of work, scope of services?
Thank you, Bo. We have a new purchasing agent for the town who would be working on any RFPs going out. So he just started within the past week or two. So I can put you in touch with him, and perhaps he can answer any specific questions that you might have with it.
Okay. I don't expect it to be anything special, but just in case. Okay.
Absolutely.
And I'll talk to you, Jay, offline at some point just to figure out exactly what the scope of work will be as far as how many options and what exactly we're going to ask them to do based on what we have right now.
Sounds good, Bo.
Okay.
All right, everybody.
Jay,
Thank you.
Jay,
yeah, go ahead.
Just a question. Is Andy still part of the committee?
Well, as of now, yes. But I'm going to talk to Andy because we haven't heard from him in months. He doesn't even answer the emails about the meeting. So I'm going to have a discussion with him about whether he's staying on or not. Okay?
Yeah, thank you. I was just curious.
Yeah. All right, I will send out something over the next week or two for our next meeting. Okay,
All right, feel better.
thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.